On August 15th, 1989, a family of 3 was driving along Interstate 205 near Stockton, California, when their car began to overheat, forcing them to pull over. The father stepped out and opened the hood to assess the issue. It quickly became clear that they needed professional assistance. Leaving the mother behind to stay with the car, the father and his young son set off on foot to find a payphone. As they walked, the boy's attention was drawn to something unusual: a camouflage jacket discarded by the side of the road. Intrigued, he wandered over for a closer look and discovered an unmarked VHS tape protruding from one of its pockets. Curious, the boy picked up the tape and later brought it home. By then, his parents were also eager to see what might be on the abandoned tape. They inserted it into their VHS player and pressed play, only to be met with content far darker than anything they could have anticipated. The original, unedited footage has never been fully released online, but fragments from various sources have surfaced, which I've pieced together as best as I could. The video begins with the camera focused on a massive fire burning in the night, accompanied by what seems to be the voice of the cameraman saying something ominous.
Look at the fire. This is my domain, my hell.
A bit into the video, the camera refocused and the source of the fire became clear. It was a single-story home that looked like it was still under construction before it caught fire.
I call it home. My hell. The whole sky's black with smoke. A fire that I will destroy and burn your soul up. Ancient spirit of evil.
Throughout the video, the cameraman continued speaking, and his words grew increasingly disturbing as time went on. Later, the sound of fire trucks arriving at the scene could be heard, accompanied by the cameraman's chilling commentary.
Look at it. The fire department's trying to put it out. What a laugh. I gotta go now. But remember me tonight, ladies and gentlemen.
Your house is next!
Tape suddenly cut to a scene from the 1984 horror film A Nightmare on Elm Street. It was unclear whether the fire footage had been recorded over the movie or if the transition was a deliberate edit. What was undeniable, however, was that the chilling video had been filmed by the person who set the house ablaze. The family turned the tape over to the police, providing detailed information about where and how they had discovered it. Investigators returned to the location, and the family's account was confirmed. The jacket was still there, but detectives uncovered additional items: a wooden pestle, a glove, a cassette of metal music, and a ceramic skull. When the police reviewed the tape, they were confronted with something unlike anything they had ever seen before.
I've never run across anything as eerie as this tape. Frightened me, as a matter of fact. I thought about it that night when I went to bed.
The poor filming conditions and shaky footage made it impossible for investigators to pinpoint the location of the fire depicted in the video. Despite conducting a frame-by-frame analysis, they were unable to link the tape to any reported fires in California. For all they knew, the fire could have occurred anywhere in the United States. As for the motive behind the act, the repeated references to hell and evil led investigators to suspect a connection to Satanism. While this theory might seem far-fetched today, it's important to remember that in the 1980s, fears of satanic activity were widespread and taken seriously. Still, without solid leads, this remained nothing more than speculation. With no other options, the investigators turned to the media for help. In September 1990, the case was featured on the popular TV show Unsolved Mysteries. The decision paid off in ways the police could not have anticipated. Within 2 hours of the episode airing, investigators received over 1,000 calls from viewers offering potential leads. Among these callers was a man named Ed Tarantino, who was deeply shaken after seeing the footage. He realized that the burning house in the video was next door to his home in Redwood City, California, roughly 80 miles west of where the tape had been discovered. Even more importantly, the broadcast also led investigators to Bill Otherly, the owner of the under-construction home seen burning in the video. He described the incident as the act of a crazy person.
And turned up, it's my house that's on the videotape. And then he heard the voice of this individual. You go, this guy ain't playing with a full deck.
This was an extremely expensive loss for Bill. The fire had completely destroyed his under-construction home, costing him $900,000, which is about $2.5 million in today's money. Meanwhile, the Redwood City Fire Department also confirmed the incident. As it turns out, the fire department had captured their own footage of the incident for use in future training, and parts of this fire department footage matched the mysterious tape. Cross-referencing the two videos also revealed that the arsonist was just about 50 feet away from the fireman when he recorded his video.
The fire department's trying to put it out. What a laugh.
Now, all that remained was to capture the culprit, but that wasn't going to be easy. According to the owner of the fire department reports, the arson attack happened in August of 1988, which is an entire year before the tape was found on the side of the road. The only lead the investigators had on the suspect was the name he mentioned in the video, Omar.
Forget it, Omar. This is what I've been doing on your week's vacation. I said I'll do it. I said I'll do it.
It wasn't much, and for a while it seemed like a dead end, that is, until the police received a new tip from Doris Lance, another person who saw the Unsolved Mysteries episode on TV. She suspected that the Omar mentioned in the video was referring to a 17-year-old boy who lived in the area, and when the police brought him in for questioning, he cracked almost immediately and told him everything. Omar claimed that he was silently standing off camera when the video was filmed, and that it was his 19-year-old friend who started the fire and recorded the video. The investigators were finally getting close to the perpetrator, but they needed more evidence before making their move, so they started tailing the alleged arsonist, observing him from a distance. However, he likely caught wind of the police, because soon after the monitoring started, his garage burned to the ground. At that point, the police had no choice but to act. On September 27, 1990, they confronted the 19-year-old directly, and just like Omar, he folded without much of a fight and confessed to everything. One thing I should point out is that the authorities never publicly revealed the identities of the two boys, so I'll call the arsonist John for the sake of convenience. After going through John's home, investigators also found tons of incriminating evidence that linked them to not only the Redwood City fire, but similar arson attacks on 11 other structures and 15 grass fires. This evidence included things like a picture of graffiti on a wall stating, "Please, no more houses," and the news clipping pinned to the wall about recent arsons, which the two boys likely caused. But that wasn't all. In the burned-down garage, they discovered bloodied knives and mutilated animal parts. They also found tapes containing disturbing footage of John dressing up as a satanic vampire and threatening a humanoid sculpture with a knife.
How you doing, Father? I hope you're doing real good.
But not all the footage was so theatrical. One of the most notable clips showed the two boys goofing around in an open field.
And now, to finish the job.
The field in question was being transformed into a housing development. It's likely the boys were enraged by these changes and decided to take matters into their own hands by setting under-construction homes on fire to halt the developments. This could also explain the eerie graffiti mentioned earlier, because both boys were minors at the time of the arson. They were tried as juveniles, despite the severity of their crimes. Omar was sent to juvenile detention, while John was declared mentally unfit and committed to a mental institution. What became of them after that? No one knows for sure. Some claims suggest that John was released from the institution and later died in a car accident in 2017. While there's no direct evidence to confirm this, I did find a news report of a hit and run in Redwood City from January 2017. The victim was 45 years old, the exact age John would have been at the time. However, if this incident is unrelated and John is still alive, it's highly unlikely he'd step forward now just to satisfy the curiosity of strangers on the internet. As for the tape itself, how it ended up abandoned on the side of the interstate remains a mystery. On August 23, 1987, two backpackers were hiking near the Junco Lake trailhead in the mountains outside the small town of Tabernash, Colorado. What began as a seemingly ordinary trek quickly turned into an unforgettable experience that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. While navigating the rugged terrain, the pair stumbled upon the wreckage of a crashed airplane, with debris scattered across the area. They promptly reported the find to the authorities, triggering a full-scale investigation to uncover the story behind the crash. As Deputy Sheriff Dale Wood of Colorado examined the site, his attention was drawn to a VHS tape tangled in the branches of a tree. Much of the tape had unraveled and hung loosely among the branches, but Wood carefully recovered what he could and sent it for restoration. Once repaired to a somewhat playable condition, the footage revealed something deeply disturbing. The tape contained the final moments of two men who had gone missing 3 years earlier, 36-year-old James Jeb Connell and his passenger, Ronald Hugh Wilmot, also in his mid-30s. On August 10, 1984, the two men had departed Granby Airport in a small Cessna L-19E Bird Dog airplane, intending to fly to Jeffco Airport. However, they never arrived. Extensive search efforts along their expected flight path yielded no clues, leaving their disappearance shrouded in mystery. What made the case even more perplexing was the presence of an emergency locator transmitter, ELT, on board the aircraft, a device designed to broadcast the plane's location in the event of a crash. Despite this, no signal was ever received, and the investigation went cold for nearly 3 years. That all changed when the hikers discovered the wreckage, ultimately leading to the unearthing of the VHS tape. The recovered footage began innocuously enough, showing the pilot casually narrating and commenting on sights from the cockpit.
Oh, look at that down there, Ronnie, on the left. Nice little lake and a cabin. Those dead trees down there. A whole bunch of them back up in here, little beetles. Very pretty little lake.
However, around 5 minutes into the footage, things start to go wrong as the ground starts coming closer. Experts analyzed the footage to determine what went wrong and concluded that the pilot failed to account for density altitude before takeoff. For those unfamiliar with aviation terminology, density altitude refers to the thickness of the air, which decreases at high altitudes in hot or humid conditions. Thinner air affects a plane's performance, including how much runway is needed and the weight it can safely carry. On the day of the crash, the density altitude near Tabernash was equivalent to 13,000 feet, meaning the air was as thin as it would be at that elevation. Unfortunately, James failed to account for this significant factor. As his plane approached rapidly rising mountains at an elevation of around 10,200 feet above sea level, he was unable to gain the necessary lift to clear them. The footage revealed his desperate attempt to turn back, but in doing so, he stalled the plane's engine. This caused the aircraft to flip and crash into the trees below. The footage also shed light on why the emergency locator transmitter, ELT, failed to function. Just before the crash, the plane flipped upside down, damaging the transmitter and rendering it unable to send a distress signal. It was an unfortunate tragedy all around. However, one positive outcome did emerge. James Connell's family authorized the use of the recovered footage in flight instructor training. It's possible that this footage has since saved lives, reminding pilots to account for density altitude before taking off. On May 31, 2013, the wailing of tornado sirens echoed through the streets of El Reno, Oklahoma, warning residents of an impending threat. Meteorologists had predicted the possibility of a rare and dangerous multi-vortex tornado touching down in the area. While this spelled bad news for locals, it also drew storm chasers from across the United States, eager to document the phenomenon. Among them was a highly experienced trio, 55-year-old Tim Samaras, his 24-year-old son Paul Samaras, and their 45-year-old colleague, Carl Young. The The team was well versed in safely pursuing tornadoes and collecting critical data for scientific research. They were also known for their work on the Discovery Channel's Storm Chasers, where they were prominent figures during seasons 3 through 5. By May 2013, the team had already spent several days in the stormy region.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be the storm of the day right here. This is going to do it, I think.
Despite their extensive knowledge and experience, the events of May 31st proved to be beyond anything they could have anticipated. Around 6 p.m., an EF3 tornado touched down in El Reno, signaling the start of the chase. However, it didn't take long for the tornado to grow increasingly unpredictable and volatile. What began as a Category EF3 tornado rapidly escalated into an EF5, the most intense classification for a tornado. Even the term EF5 fails to capture the sheer scale and destructive power of this particular storm. By the time it stopped growing, the El Reno tornado had reached a staggering width of 2.6 miles, making it the largest tornado ever recorded. Its wind speeds peaked at 313 miles per hour, over 500 kilometers per hour, a force almost beyond comprehension. Tim Samaras, his son Paul, and their colleague Carl Young were attempting to track the tornado from a safe distance, riding parallel to its path to observe and gather data. Tragically, the tornado made a sudden and unpredictable turn, heading directly toward their vehicle. Despite their desperate attempts to escape, it was too late. The twister lifted their car into the air and hurled it across the El Reno region. When the storm finally subsided, search teams found the wreckage of their vehicle, which had been crushed to 60% of its original size. Tim's body was discovered still strapped inside, while Paul and Carl's bodies were located half a mile to the east and west of the car, respectively. All three had lost their lives in the catastrophic event. During the search, authorities also recovered a camera that, against all odds, had survived the tornado and was still recording. The footage captured the crew's final moments. Although the raw footage has not been released to the public and remains unseen on the internet, a select few, including the crew's close friend Gabe Garfield, have viewed it. Garfield described hearing Carl remark on the eerie calmness of the air around them shortly before the end. Tim, sensing the imminent danger, responded grimly, "Actually, we're in a bad spot," before uttering his haunting final words, "We're going to die." The tragic story of Tim, Paul, and Carl stands as a sobering reminder of the extreme risks storm chasers face. Even a team of seasoned experts, armed with years of experience, could not withstand the unpredictable wrath of nature at its most ferocious.